strange, isn't it? If you spend your life worrying about what people think, you may end up living a life that isn't yours. Most people don't fail because they lack talent or opportunity. They fail quietly because they allow opinions from people who don't care about their growth to shape their decisions, their confidence, and their direction. Jim Rohn once said, "Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better." And part of becoming better is learning when not to listen. So today, let's talk about the silent killer that holds millions of people back. Caring deeply about opinions that contribute nothing to your life. Understand this truth about opinions. Here's a simple reality that Jim Rohn understood early. Everyone has an opinion, but very few have responsibility for your life. Think about it. The people who criticize your goals won't pay your bills. The people who doubt your vision won't live with the consequences of your choices. And the people who judge your progress won't show up to fix your regrets. Yet we often give them the loudest voice. Jim used to say that opinions are like pennies. Everyone has them, and most aren't worth much. Ask yourself, if this person's opinion became reality, would it improve my life? If the answer is no, why give it power? You don't need approval from people who aren't invested in your future. The cost of caring too much. Caring what people think always comes with a devastating price. It costs you courage, it costs you momentum, and over time, it costs you self-respect. Imagine driving a car while constantly turning your head to see who's watching. You wouldn't get very far, and eventually, you'd crash. That's what happens when you let outside opinions steer your decisions. Jim Rohn often reminded people, if you don't design your own life plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's. And guess what they have planned for you? Not much. When you care too much about what others think, you begin shrinking your goals to stay comfortable, silencing your voice to avoid judgment, and delaying action to avoid criticism. But comfort never built a meaningful life. Separate feedback from noise. Now this is important. Jim Rohn never said to ignore all opinions. There is a critical difference between feedback and noise. Feedback comes from people who care about your growth. Noise comes from people who comment from the sidelines. Think of a coach and a critic. A coach corrects you to make you better. A critic judges you to make themselves feel better. Jim taught that you should listen carefully, but only to voices that are credible, constructive, and committed to your success. So ask yourself, is this person qualified to advise me? Do they want me to win? Are they living the kind of life I respect? If the answer is no to any of those questions, thank them politely and keep moving. Build confidence from self-respect, not approval. Once you stop living for the approval of others, you begin living from your own standards. And that shift changes everything. This is where most people struggle. They haven't built inner confidence. Confidence does not come from being liked. It comes from keeping promises to yourself. Jim Rohn taught that self-confidence is a byproduct of self-discipline. When you do what you said you would do, even when no one is watching, you begin to trust yourself. Think of a person who says they'll wake up early, and does. Who says they'll read, and reads. That person doesn't need approval. Their confidence is internal. Most people look for confidence after success. Jim Rohn knew it comes before success. Ask yourself, what promise have I been avoiding keeping to myself? That's where confidence begins. Stop explaining your life to everyone. One of the most freeing lessons Jim Rohn shared was this. You don't owe everyone an explanation. When you explain too much, you give others the illusion that they have authority over your choices. Jim would say, let others talk about you while you quietly build your future. Explaining invites debate. Debate invites doubt. Doubt invites delay. You don't need to convince anyone of your vision. Your job is to work on it, not argue about it. So the next time someone questions your path, try this. Silence and progress. Choose standards over popularity. Popularity feels good in the moment. Standards build a life. Jim Rohn believed that success is simply a set of personal standards lived daily. And standards require the courage to be misunderstood. Think of an eagle. It flies alone, high above the noise. It doesn't argue with pigeons about why it soars higher. If you choose growth, there will be moments when people don't understand you. That's not a sign you're wrong. It's often a sign you're evolving. Ask yourself, am I trying to be liked, or am I trying to be effective? Because you can't always be both. Redefine success on your own terms. When you finally stop carrying the weight of other people's opinions, something remarkable happens. You begin to hear your own voice again. One of the greatest traps in life is chasing someone else's definition of success. Jim Rohn often reminded us that success is personal. It's not the car you drive or the applause you receive. It's the progress you make toward becoming who you want to be. If everyone applauds you but you feel empty, is that success? If no one notices you but you're growing daily, isn't that real success? Write it down. Define success in your own words. Because once you know what success means to you, outside opinions lose their grip. Let your growth make the noise. Jim Rohn believed that growth is the most convincing argument you can make. You don't need to announce your goals. You don't need to defend your discipline. You don't need to explain your silence. Progress speaks louder than words. Think of a seed underground. No one claps while it grows. Your growth works the same way. Stay consistent, stay patient, stay focused. The people who once doubted you will eventually ask, how did you do it? Become unshakable in who you are. Here's the final lesson Jim Rohn taught so beautifully. When you know who you are, opinions lose their power. A person with direction doesn't get distracted by criticism. A person with purpose doesn't chase approval. You become unshakable when your identity is rooted in growth. So ask yourself, who am I becoming? Not who do they want you to be, but who do you respect when you look in the mirror? That answer changes everything. If you remember nothing else from this message, remember this. People who don't care about your growth should not control your thoughts. You don't need permission to evolve. You don't need approval to improve. Jim Rohn taught us that your life changes the moment you decide to take full responsibility for your direction. And today, that moment can be now. Now I want to hear from you. Comment below, I'm ready to grow. I'm taking action. Or, here's one habit I'll start today. Because the moment you stop caring what people think, especially those who don't care about you, is the moment you begin to build a life you truly respect. Your journey continues, starting now.